We begin, though, this morning with the White House's new push to control the current wave of coronavirus cases.
President Biden is expected to announce a plan later today to help stop the spread of the Delta variant and to boost vaccinations. An average of 140,000 Americans are testing positive every day right now. Well, it appears daily case numbers are going down nationwide. Health experts warn this number could tick back up again, especially as children head back to school. There is a number experts in the White House want to see tick back up. This number here, vaccinations. Right now, America is giving out about 826,000 doses a day. That number is higher than earlier this summer, but still may not be enough to get the contagious Delta variant under control. NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli joins us now. So, Mike, first of all, give us a preview. What do we know about President Biden's plan to try and change the course of this pandemic?
Well, Joe, you remember it was just a couple months ago, around the 4th of July, the president was declaring independence from the virus, or at least something close to that. But then along came the Delta variant. And yes, we have seen cases started to tick down just a little bit. But within the past 2 weeks, we've seen some of the highest case rates across the country during the entirety of the pandemic. So we don't know much in terms of specifics just yet about what the president's going to unveil. But we do know the 6 broad categories of what is the White House is calling an all-levers approach to dealing with the pandemic. And it starts with some familiar themes, including vaccinating the unvaccinated. We know what an urgent task that has been. Then going to furthering protection for the vaccinated. We expect this will deal with booster shots and the plans to roll those out later this month. If you want to know why the president's giving the speech right now, it has to do with point number 3, keeping schools safely open. Already, we're seeing schools having to close that were just open for the school year. Now, some of the other points involve increasing testing and masking requirements, protecting our economic recovery, a really important focus for this president at this time, and then improving care for those who have COVID-19. When you look at what we're seeing across the country, especially in schools, as parents are sending their children back to schools, this is a major front-of-mind concern for the average American, and this is a moment in time that the president wants to make sure to the American people that they see him still dealing with this crisis that he had long hoped to put behind him.
Mike, let's take a closer look at one part of the plan, giving fully vaccinated Americans another shot. The World Health Organization is calling for wealthier countries to stop handing out boosters and instead help out struggling countries. So how's the White House responding to concerns that it's just too soon for boosters?
Well, what the White House has been consistent since they first discussed the booster plan last month is that this is not an either-or scenario, but a both-and scenario. They believe that they have enough supply both to give booster shots to Americans who need them, but also continue to be the arsenal of vaccines for the country, as the president has put it. Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki yesterday laying this out.
From Senegal to South Africa to India, we've made significant investments in boosting global productions of COVID vaccines. At the same time, the president and this administration has a responsibility to do everything we can to protect people in the United States in this country. And as our health advisors have recommended additional booster shots, we are working to implement that. Our view is we can do both.
So the administration has worked very hard to make sure there is enough supply for all Americans and says, yes, that they can share that with the world later on. But the criticism from even some of our allies has been that because the U.S. has put such a premium on having enough supply, it has put other countries to the back of the list. They're not even able to reach out to these manufacturers themselves and get the supply. But that's why there is a global vaccine effort. There's just been questions about how successful it's been so far.
And, of course, the global effort is so important to controlling all of these variants. Mike, while we have you, I want to ask you about something else. The White House pushing out several Trump administration appointees from their posts on military academy advisory boards. Tell us more about this and what led up to this decision.
So when we talk about presidential appointments, we often think of those that require Senate confirmation, cabinet offices and the like. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of board positions that the president has discretion to appoint. And former President Trump appointed quite a few of his political allies to some of them. And we saw just in the last few days now, some of those Trump allies speaking publicly when they received a letter from the White House head of personnel office, Catherine Russell, asking them to either resign their position or expect to be terminated. What the White House is saying is that they are considering that these positions should be based on merit, not on political affiliations. But some of those, including Sean Spicer, we've heard very clearly raising their objections. Spicer, who was on the board of one of these military academy visitor centers, says he is a veteran and he has the qualifications. But we're waiting to hear more from the White House about how this political fight will play out.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Kellyanne Conway, another name on that list. All right, Mike Memley. Mike, thanks so much for your reporting.
Now let's get to COVID and kids returning to school. And even schools with a mask mandate in place face a midday hurdle that could put kids and staff in harm's way. Lunchtime, often in big cafeterias, some with poor ventilation. So the solution might be to take students outside. NBC News correspondent Heidi Presbella joins us now from Arlington, Virginia, where parents support this decision to take lunch outdoors. Heidi, good morning. So this is something we haven't talked about much. I mean, the focus has been on whether there are masks or not in schools. But even for these schools with masks, there are these risks. So how did they come to this solution? And so far, how's outdoor lunch going?
Yeah, Savannah, remember when you and I, all of the adults, refused to dine indoors before we were fully vaccinated? Well, that was with a less contagious variant. And so the principals here are saying, look, this was not a hard decision. We're just following the science, and we want our children to have as much fresh air as possible. Here's what the principal said.
It's going really well. We've had a great support from the community. We have parents who have asked to volunteer to help monitor lunches, which is one of the ways that we've been able to pull this off. The teachers have been fabulous and flexible while we work through these kinks the first few days with everyone back in the building and outside at lunch. The front office has been great managing the requests from parents to help volunteer. My assistant principal has been fabulous helping support the custodial staff. It really does take everybody to make this happen.
So this is the school in Arlington that has the smallest footprint, Savannah, and yet they're managing to do this. Here's what they do. It's not hard. They open these doors, the kids come out, they stagger the lunchtime, they put them all on blankets, on towels. The kids actually love it because sometimes mommy or daddy volunteer to come and eat lunch outdoors with them, and they're keeping kids safe in the meantime. This is one of the most important things that you can do because lunchrooms can be very dangerous if you're eating indoors, packed in with all of those respiratory droplets. You can't use the masks.
Heidi, you must be at an elementary school if we're at the phase where they're excited that mommy and daddy are there. So that's very sweet. Now, how are the parents who are coming, who are helping out, or who have kids there feeling about this new outside lunch policy?
Look, the parents here are pretty informed, and there was a big push behind this going back to the spring. They knew that the kids were going to be coming back, Delta virus or no Delta virus, with a transmissible virus in here. And so they've been pressuring the school. They say particularly in the middle schools, Savannah, these schools just weren't designed to have social distancing in the cafeteria. Here's what some of them said.
It came up that the kids were going to be eating together in the cafeteria indoors, and that the only mitigation plan was open windows. And so a number of the parents raised that as a significant concern, that we weren't comfortable with our kids eating together in the cafeteria, and really pushed to say we need an outdoor plan and we need it before school starts.
I think we need to educate our students, and I've taken the time to educate mine. I said we don't eat in restaurants indoors. Eating in the cafeteria is the same thing.
The real issue now, Savannah, is what other school districts would do. A number of school districts in this area are also trying to do this. Arlington has plans for every single school now to do this, but others are saying, look, we made our plans back in spring and it's hard to adjust. The parents are saying nonsense. This doesn't cost money. You just open the doors. You let the kids out.
Heidi, though, what happens in winter? I mean, when it's freezing outside. I grew up in San Diego where we ate outdoors year-round, but it's obviously not the weather in December in Northern Virginia. What happens?
Well, look, they're not viewing this as a long-term issue. Right now, we have a lot of kids in this building, actually all of them, who cannot be vaccinated. Now, they're hoping that they can do this through the fall in this format. They'll think about sustainability and how to do it long-term. In the meantime, try to set some tents up, try to set up some outdoor structures. But for right now, they really don't need anything else, Savannah, and they're hoping that this can last just through the time when these children will be vaccinated so that they are in this moment protecting them and showing this flexibility. And another principal who I talked to said, I asked her, well, does this cost money? How are you going to do this? And she said, money? She laughed and she said, no, we just used our brains.
All right, Heidi Presbella, thank you so much.
For more on the pandemic, let's bring in Dr. Adrian Burrows. He's a family medicine physician and the CEO of CFP Physicians Group. Dr. Burrows, good to have you with us. So you're in hard-hit Florida, where most kids have been back in school for a few weeks now. And over the past month, COVID hospital admissions among children in the state reached a new pandemic high. So in your mind, what more needs to be done? What kind of mitigation measures do you want to see in schools to try and change course?
Well, I need our governor to wake up. Right now, Governor DeSantis is fighting the public health officials and the CDC on their recommendations, which are to make sure that children wear masks when they're in schools and appropriately social distance. Right now, if you're under the age of 12, you're not even eligible to have a vaccination. So we need to do what we can to keep our children safe and also to keep our teachers safe.
Let's look at another part of the country. Los Angeles is expected to become the first major school district to mandate coronavirus vaccines for eligible students. The district's meeting today to vote on the measure, which is expected to pass. I mean, what do you make of this? Do you think kids there then will still need to wear masks too if they're vaccinated? And what do you make of this policy?
Yes, and I think for people that may have some outrage regarding this, right now, vaccinations are required. If you have a child going to college, they have to have a meningitis vaccine. Some employers require their employees to have hepatitis B vaccine. So I'm in favor of making sure that there's vaccinations in place. And I think it will get some pushback, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to make it a safer environment for kids to be in. Until that's done, and probably while it's still going on because of the Delta variant being so contagious, they'll still have to wear masks.
And Dr. Burrows, what do you want to hear from President Biden today when he makes this big COVID announcement? What do you think needs to be done now to try and control the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that the administration needs to make sure that everybody's on the same page. The CDC is saying the same thing that Dr. Fauci is saying. It's the same thing that President Biden's going to say, which is that I want to hear them say that we are going to be instituting, more mask mandates, that federal employees are going to be recommended to be vaccinated, that they're going to support businesses that, encourage vaccination. Those are the steps that we need to do to try to stem this pandemic.
All right, Dr. Adrian Burrows, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Overnight across the Northeast, communities still reeling from last week's devastating storm got something they didn't need another storm.
Well, in the South, where hundreds of thousands are still without power, Hurricane Ida's deadly toll continues to grow. All this as Tropical Storm Mindy made landfall in the Florida Panhandle. NBC News correspondent Kristen Dahlgren joins us from Manville, New Jersey with more. Kristen, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, as the rain continues to come down here, this is an area that has just been on eggshells for the past 12 hours or so. You can see all the damage that Ida left behind. Now they've been bracing for this next round of storms, even as so many are still looking for help. Overnight, Tropical Storm Mindy making landfall near the Florida Panhandle. Heavy rain and high winds creating rough surf, blowing this semi-truck off the road near Tallahassee. The storm's impact sweeping throughout the South, expected to bring possibly up to 6 inches of rain in some areas. Meanwhile, the devastating toll of Ida continues to be felt across the Northeast. New York City tapping into a new alert system for the latest storm. Mayor Bill de Blasio detailing the climate-driven rain response plan in light of Ida's aftermath.
And what we're going to be doing from now on is giving people information with a sense that we know how rapidly weather is changing now, like nothing we've ever seen before.
Residents in the hardest hit areas worried what the new weather will bring.
We're seeing this as a flood zone. I'm ready to go. I don't want to be in it again.
There's not a lot we could do to prepare for it. We could just pray that it's just going to be a rainstorm and that's it. There's not a lot to lose.
Leaders in New Jersey pushing for more federal aid.
In this small town, this is the 4th major storm that has devastated our town in 25 years. Our community needs help. We're not the only one, but we need help.
In the South, Hurricane Ida's devastation still growing.
I don't really have any words to say. It's just very heartbreaking. I don't know what we're going to do from here.
More than 80 have now died. Louisiana reporting 11 additional storm-related deaths from Ida. The lights are back on for some in the Bayou State. But more than 10 days after Ida made landfall, hundreds of thousands remain without power.
But we'll make it. We'll get through it. I don't mean to cry. But it's hard. It's a lot.
And a bit of a sigh of relief this morning. The rain's still coming down. We didn't see that big flash flooding, but this hasn't made it easy for cleanup. You can see house after house along this street, all of their worldly possessions out here on the curb, and some people not sure if they'll ever get back into these houses, guys.
Heartbreaking to hear, Ansi. Kristen, thank you so much. Now for a look at where Mindy is going and what else is happening across the rest of the country, let's get a check on your Morning News Now weather.
Bill Cairns is with us. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good morning. So let's start in the Northeast, because we went into yesterday thinking chance for isolated tornadoes, and we knew we were going to have some heavy rain. We weren't thinking that it was going to specifically be in those areas that were hit by Ida, and that's kind of exactly what happened. The heaviest rain overnight was in areas of the Poconos near Allentown, Pennsylvania, and then we had some pretty strong thunderstorms that went through Connecticut and that are now heading through Cape Cod. We even had a tornado warning at 4 in the morning. I'm sure a lot of people woke up by that just outside of Hartford. So you see right now, a lot of the heavy rain is kind of exiting, just some light stuff left around Philadelphia and Long Island. And the timing for today, from D.C. up to New York, there could be a scattered shower this afternoon, but the heavier stuff is going to remain over Providence and Boston, the Cape, and areas of Maine. It does not look heavy enough to be, flash flooding worthy wise. As far as Mindy goes, this thing quickly became a tropical storm and made landfall just to the southwest of Tallahassee yesterday afternoon and evening. And now we are watching this storm system affecting Savannah and Charleston. It's not a huge ordeal. The winds are only at 35 miles per hour, and even this is gone later this afternoon. So in the Northeast, I don't expect any damage today, and I don't expect any problems from Mindy either. And how about the heat? 95 Denver, 96 Salt Lake City, and heading into the weekend outlook, the Northeast dries out. Still a little rainy and wet in areas of the Northwest, but that's welcomed rain for the firefighters. But the heat is just relentless in the middle of the country. That's not a misprint. 101 near Wichita. And as we head into Saturday, nice little fall feel to it in the Northeast. And then the heat begins to build in the mid-Atlantic on Sunday and into Saturday afternoon. By the time we get to Sunday, near 90 in Washington, D.C., still in the 90s in the middle of the country. The only comfortable coolerish type weather will be there in the northern plains and Great Lakes. So the bottom line is another summer weekend heading this way. Make your plans, the beach, the pool, the lake. All a big thumbs up, guys.
All right.
Good news.
Good weekend forecast.
Wish I had one of those things at my disposal here in New York City. It's still great. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.